Hello and welcome back to the Electronic Intifada's live stream for Thursday, August 14th. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Nora Barrows-Friedman with my colleagues Ali Abunimah, Jon Elmer, and Tamara Nassar. Asa Winstanley is off this week. It's day 678 of Israel's genocide in Gaza. Coming up, we'll be joined by Dyab Abu Jahjah, co-founder and chair of the Hind Rajab Foundation, about identifying and pursuing Israeli personnel for their involvement in war crimes in Gaza. And Palestinian academic and writer Shahd Abusalama, who grew up in Gaza's Jabaliya refugee camp, will be with us to talk about the daily struggle genocide survivors face just to stay alive. Later on in the program, Jon will cover the latest news from the resistance in Gaza and Yemeni support operations. But first, let's take a look at the news. Here's a brief summary of some of the latest developments this week in Palestine. Israel has bombed and attacked areas across Gaza this week, killing at least 564 Palestinians and injuring nearly 3,100 between August 6th and August 13th, according to official records from the Ministry of Health in Gaza. The number of casualties among starving people trying to access food aid has increased to nearly 1,900 killed and approximately 13,600 injured since May 27th, when Israel and the U.S. opened its private so-called aid distribution sites, opening fire on crowds every day since. On Wednesday, Israeli forces killed at least 100 Palestinians, the health ministry reported, including 61 in attacks in Gaza City, as Israel's destruction of northern Gaza intensifies. 37 starving people were killed on Wednesday while trying to obtain food aid. An airstrike in the Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City on August 11th killed an entire family, the only survivor being a young girl named Lorin An-Nadim, who was trapped beneath the rubble, pinned against a mattress that Lorin said was her parents' bed. The Palestinian civil defense recorded her rescue.
يلا يا عمو حتطلعي شو معلقه
فرشه عليها حجار تخافيش يا عمو طيب تخافيش يا عمو تخافيش انت بس
ايش اسمك؟
بس يا عمو
لورين
شطوره يا لورين شطوره
بعدك نشوف اشوف عشان اعرف تبعك ابويا
معكم كنتوا نايمين انتوا؟ وشو صار؟
That's from the civil defense on August 11th. Their spokesperson, Mahmoud Basal, said that air raids on Gaza City have been steadily intensifying for days, as the Israeli army is using bombs, drones, and highly explosive munitions that cause massive destruction to residential buildings. The civil defense stated earlier this week that one of its firefighters was killed in his family's tent shelter in Al-Mawasi in central Gaza. More than 135 rescue workers with the civil defense have been killed over the past 22 months. Israel's escalations of attacks in Gaza City this week killed at least 7 children in a single airstrike on a building in the Zaytun neighborhood on Sunday, August 10th. In an extremely graphic video, which I will not play here, the bodies of 7 small children, most of whom appear to be babies and toddlers, lay bloodied and strewn on the floor at a hospital as family members mourned over them. Later that evening on August 10th, Israel directly attacked a journalist tent in the courtyard of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, assassinating 6 broadcast reporters and photojournalists, as Israel's hunting and targeted killings of high-profile witnesses to its crimes of genocide continue with impunity. Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif, a 28-year-old reporter who millions in Palestine and around the world relied on every day for his coverage, was killed alongside the network's correspondent Mohammed Kareka, their cameramen Ibrahim Zahir and Mohammed Nofal, journalists Mu'amin Aliwa and Mohammed Al-Khaldi, and Saad Jundiya, a Palestinian civilian who happened to be present. This clip was recorded just moments after the airstrike, when friends and colleagues of the reporters and their community realized that they had been killed. They tried to retrieve the journalists' shredded bodies as their clothes were still on fire.
محمد قريقة حاط محمد قريقة قريقة محمد يا حبيبي قريقة أنس الشريف يمكن عايش خذوا جوا يمكن عايش طيب استنى شوي خذوا جوا عبر جوا يا راجل يا جماعة شيلوا
That was filmed just moments after the airstrike on the journalist's tent at Al-Shifa Hospital. Just 3 weeks ago on this live stream, we highlighted Anas al-Sharif's appeal to all international press freedom and human rights organizations to do something to intervene against renewed threats against him by the Israeli military. He stated on July 23rd, quote, "Once again, the Israeli army spokesperson has launched a campaign of threats and incitement against me because of my work as a journalist with Al Jazeera. I reaffirm I, Anas al-Sharif, am a journalist with no political affiliations. My only mission is to report the truth from the ground as it is, without bias." Al-Sharif's friend and fellow reporter Ibrahim Nofal, whose brother Muhammad was killed in the airstrike on August 10th, had filmed Anas al-Sharif reacting to the video of Israeli military spokesperson Avichai Adra'i, who openly threatened al-Sharif on social media. Anas watches the video on a phone, in a tent, surrounded by his colleagues. He says, quote, "I really don't know, Ibrahim, what this guy wants from me. He wants me to stop covering the news. He wants me to stop covering the massacres that are happening. Despite that, I will continue until my last breath. Whether he threatens me or wants to bomb me, the mission will continue until the last breath, God willing. God willing, we are not afraid."
عجبا وألف عجب أنك تدعي اليوم أنك مع وقفة الأقمار وتتحدث عن معاناة النساء
الله أنا عارف إبراهيم إيش هذا بده مني؟ هذا بده إياني أقف عن الطريق.
هذا بعمل لك دعاية بس.
ما بدتش أي حاجة من المجازر اللي بتصير. ورغم هيك إن شاء الله مكملين لآخر نفس. يهدد بده يقصف الرسالة راح تضلها مستمرة لآخر نفس إن شاء الله.
بإذن الله.
مش خايفين.
Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues who were murdered on August 10th in their tent at Al-Shifa Hospital are 6 of at least 238 reporters and media workers killed by the Israeli army as the world powers and international agencies continue to fail the Palestinians of Gaza nearly 2 years into this genocide. Euromed Human Rights Monitor said that Israel, quote, "has turned its horrific 22-month war on the Gaza Strip into a slaughterhouse for Palestinian journalists, systematically targeting them and their workplaces in an effort to enforce a total media blackout across the enclave." Anas al-Sharif's final broadcast for Al Jazeera aired earlier in the day, focused on tiny children who were suffering from Israel's deliberate starvation policy. Al-Sharif, wearing his press vest and helmet, reported from a Gaza City hospital and told the stories of each child in the ward in a harrowing 4-minute report. Later that evening, Al-Sharif posted the following, quote, "The occupation is threatening to invade Gaza seriously, and the city has been bleeding for 22 months under the fire of land, sea, and air. Its martyrs number in the tens of thousands and its wounded in the hundreds of thousands. And if this madness does not stop, nothing will remain of Gaza but rubble, and the image and voice of its people will fade away, and history's memory will record you as silent witnesses to a genocide crime that no one did anything to stop." Minutes before he was killed, Anas al-Sharif posted 13 seconds of video of heavy bombing in Gaza City. He captioned this clip, quote, Relentless bombardment. For 2 hours, the Israeli aggression has intensified on Gaza City. Two days earlier, on Friday, August 8th, Anas al-Sharif documented an airstrike on homes in western Gaza City while he was being hunted by the Israelis and while the Israeli government announced that they were planning to intensify their obliteration of northern Gaza. Quote, "Night and day, the Israeli raids on Gaza do not stop," he wrote, "and this is one of them, just moments ago, targeting a house west of Gaza City." In April of this year, just days after Israel assassinated his colleague, 23-year-old Hossam Shabat, in a targeted drone strike, Anas al-Sharif wrote his last will and testament to be published upon his death. I'll read excerpts of it here. "This is my will and my final message. If these words reach you, know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice. God knows I gave every effort and all my strength to be a support and a voice for my people, ever since I opened my eyes to life in the alleys and streets of the Jabaliya refugee camp. My hope was that God would extend my life so I could return with my family and loved ones to our original town of occupied Ascalon, al-Majdal. But God's will came first and his decree is final. I have lived through pain in all its details, tasted suffering and loss many times, yet I never once hesitated to convey the truth as it is, without distortion or falsification, so that God may bear witness against those who stayed silent, those who accepted our killing, those who choked our breath, and whose hearts were unmoved by the scattered remains of our children and women, doing nothing to stop the massacre that our people have faced for more than a year and a half. I entrust you with Palestine, the jewel in the crown of the Muslim world, the heartbeat of every free person in this world. I entrust you with its people, with its wronged and innocent children who have never had the time to dream or live in safety and peace. Their pure bodies were crushed under thousands of tons of Israeli bombs and missiles, torn apart and scattered across the walls. I urge you not to let chains silence you, nor borders restrain you. Be bridges toward the liberation of the land and its people, until the sun of dignity and freedom rises over our stolen homeland. I entrust you to take care of my family. I entrust you with my beloved daughter Shem, the light of my eyes, whom I never got the chance to watch grow up as I had dreamed. I entrust you with my dear son Salah, who I had wished to support and accompany through life until he grew strong enough to carry my burden and continue the mission. I entrust you with my beloved mother, whose blessed prayers brought me to where I am, whose supplications were my fortress and whose light guided my path. I also entrust you with my lifelong companion, my beloved wife, Salah Bayan, from whom the war separated me for many long days and months. Yet she remained faithful to our bond, steadfast as the trunk of an olive tree that does not bend, patient, trusting in God, and carrying the responsibility in my absence with all her strength and faith. I urge you to stand by them, to be their support after God Almighty. If I die steadfast upon my principles. Do not forget Gaza, and do not forget me in your sincere prayers for forgiveness and acceptance. Anas Jamal al-Sharif. Condolences and messages of grief and love poured in from Anas al-Sharif's colleagues, from friends, and from people across Gaza and around the world. Reporter Ahmed al-Najjar in Khan Yunis told Al Jazeera on Tuesday that the targeted airstrike on the agency's staff was the most devastating loss Gaza's journalist community has faced. Journalist Salah al-Jafarawi mourned Anas al-Sharif and posted this video of their reunion during the so-called ceasefire in January of this year.
لقاء الأحبة.
الحمد لله على السلامة. حبيبي حبيبي. لا والله لا والله. حبيبي والله. الحمد لله ربنا سلمكم.
لقيته؟
السلام الحمد لله.
That was from journalist Saleh Al-Jafarawi. Anas al-Sharif, 28 years old, was buried in Gaza City along with his colleagues. Mohammed Koreka, a correspondent for Al Jazeera who was also killed in the airstrike on the reporter's tent at Al-Shifa Hospital, was the only son of his parents. In 2024, Israeli forces executed his mother, who sought shelter and medicine at Al-Shifa Hospital during the second assault on the compound, according to his colleague Noor Oda. Mohammed was killed a few steps away from the crime scene of his mom's murder, Oda said. Koreka was described by his wife as extremely devoted to his mother, to his children, and to her. Quote, "We were unnaturally close," she said. "He spent his time between his work and his home. He dedicated his life to his wife and children. Mohammed and Anas had a very strong relationship, but we never expected them to meet the same end." Meanwhile, as Israel slaughters professional eyewitnesses to its crimes, Western and regional states continue to send lethal airdropped parcels of food aid instead of forcing Israel to open the crossings to the 22,000 aid trucks that remain blocked. On Saturday, August 9th, an airdropped box fell on a child in central Gaza, killing him instantly. The day before, on August 8th, an aid parcel landed on top of people and severely injured 19-year-old Karam al-Kahlut as he was trying to obtain water for his disabled father. Mahmoud Basal, the spokesperson for Gaza's civil defense, standing at the teenager's bedside in the hospital, called for stopping the airdrops and instead ensure aid delivery through official crossings, quote, "in a safe and organized manner, guaranteeing it reaches those in need without endangering civilians' lives. This is what we've been warning about since the Israeli occupation agreed to the Arab countries' airdrops to Gaza," Basal stated. The Gaza government media office stated on August 9th that at least 23 Palestinians have been killed and 124 wounded from these airdrops since the beginning of the genocide. Euromed Human Rights Monitor released statistics on the exact amount of aid that has been dropped so far. From July 26th to August 11th, only 1,218 aid packages were dropped onto Gaza, the human rights group stated. Quote, "Gaza's actual need is around 600 trucks of aid every single day to stop famine and begin recovery. Over 17 days, that equals to 10,200 trucks. Since one truckload equals 30 airdropped packages, Gaza requires about 18,000 packages each day. The 1,218 packages dropped in that period equal just 40.6 truckloads in total, or an average of only 2.4 trucks per day, a mere 0.4% of what is actually needed. At this rate, it would take 250 days of airdrops to deliver the same amount of aid Gaza requires in a single day," Euromed said. However, Denmark, in coordination with the United Arab Emirates and Jordan, announced that it would start participating in lethal airdrops, joining the UK, Canada, France, and Spain, among other countries who have decided to turn to public relations management instead of physically stopping Israel's genocide, starvation, and siege on Gaza. Meanwhile, Israeli forces at the Gaza boundary crossings and Israeli and American mercenary forces operating the private so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites continue to trap, injure, and kill starving Palestinians every day. Doctors Without Borders released a report this week titled, "This is not aid, this is orchestrated killing," which draws on medical data, patient testimonies, and firsthand medical witnessing, quote, to demonstrate that what has been branded as aid distribution is in fact a system of institutionalized starvation and dehumanization. Joining similar calls by Palestinian civil society and United Nations agencies, the human rights group called for the immediate dissolution of the GHF distribution mechanism and urged states and private donors to refrain from funding what is essentially a death trap. And Israeli forces continue to target starving Palestinians at crossings in northern Gaza, who try to obtain limited amount of food aid, and those who are working to protect the aid from armed Israel-backed gangs. Euromed Monitor's Maha Husseini reported on Wednesday that an Israeli airstrike targeted a group of security personnel, killing 12 and injuring dozens more. Husseini said that, quote, for weeks, aid has been looted by armed gangs operating under the protection of Israeli forces. Gangs are allowed to access areas where regular citizens are barred. Security personnel were deployed today, Wednesday, to protect aid and ensure it reached UN and international organizations' warehouses. They have now been targeted again, she said. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza reported on Wednesday that it recorded 8 deaths due to starvation in a 24-hour period, including 3 children. This brings the total number of victims of Israel's starvation to 235, including 106 children. Reporter Moaz Abu Taha interviewed Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah at Nasser Medical Complex this week, who talked about his 2-year-old patient, Sham Koide, who weighs just 4 kilograms, less than 9 pounds. Sham's mother shows photos of her baby before she was forcibly starved by Israel.
أنا خايفة أفقد بنتي، خايفة على حياتها. هاي بنتي شام قبل ما تسوء حالتها ويصير عندها سوء تغذية حاد. هاي الصورة، الفرق بين الصورة هاي والصورة هاي.
Sham is 2 years old. Now she's in the hospital. Her weight is just 4 kilograms. Her weight should be 12 kilograms. She lost nearly 8 kilograms from her actual weight. She's complaining from severe acute malnutrition. As we can see, she just have the skin over the bone. The muscles are lost. The fat tissue is lost. She's dehydrated. She has sunken eyes. She's apathic. She's irritable. She's anxious. She has severe distended abdomen. She has hepatomegaly. She has signs of rickets due to vitamin D deficiency. Rachitic rosary, still open anterior fontanelle, irritability, wide broadening of the lower limbs and the upper limbs. So she need to evacuated outside as soon as possible to be diagnosed.
That was Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah at the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis. Mohammed Zakut, Gaza's director of general hospitals, told Al Jazeera Arabic that, quote, these cases will soon be in the thousands if nothing changes. Children are among the weakest and most vulnerable to malnutrition. We have no treatments to save them, not even intravenous feeding, which is used in emergency cases like those we are seeing now. We've published many features on the Electronic Intifada in the last week, but we wanted to highlight the story of the last date in Gaza by Asim Al-Nabih, writing from Gaza City. Asim told us parts of this story on our July 17th live stream, but here he expands on what he said in his beautiful poetic writing. Quote, it's just a date, a single 4-centimeter piece of dried fruit. But here in Gaza, where nothing comes easily and everything holds meaning, even a date becomes a symbol of endurance, sacrifice, and love. I kept this date for 6 months. I'd found it and saved it for what I imagined would be the darkest days, the days when food would disappear from the shelves, when starvation would wrap itself around our lives, when sharing even a crumb would become an act of resistance. Those days are now. No one in my family wanted to eat the last date and deny someone else its sweetness. That's who we are in Gaza, not just survivors, but givers. We give even what little we have left, not because we are saints, but because love and dignity are all we can hold on to when everything else has been taken from us. War can reveal the worst in people. Here in Gaza, it also brings out the best. Our streets are filled with pain and rubble, but also with kindness. Small gestures like passing along a date speak volumes about who we are. Some may say it's just a date, but I see in it the whole of Gaza's story: deprivation and generosity, despair and defiance, the tight knots of family, and the unwillingness to surrender to cruelty. This date, saved and shared, is a tiny act of rebellion in the face of a system trying to strip us of everything, even the right to nourish our children. In Gaza, we have redefined wealth. Wealth is not what you hoard, but what you give away, and is measured in the strength of the bonds that hold families and neighbors together. In a world that tries to reduce us to statistics, we have become storytellers. A single date carries the story of a family's love, a child's survival, a father's absence, and a people's refusal to stop being human. People ask how we survive, how we keep going when the bombs keep falling, when hunger gnaws at our children, when there is no certainty that we'll live to see the next sunrise. My answer is, we survive for one another. We survive because in Gaza, no one wants to eat the last date. And we survive because we are all dreaming that a day might come soon with freedom and an abundance of dates. The date is gone now, eaten by a child too young to know what it means. But the act remains, rippling outward like a pebble cast into water. It is in these ripples, in the stories we tell, in the way we refuse to forget, that Gaza lives on. Those are excerpts from The Story of the Last Date in Gaza by Asim An-Nabih, writing from Gaza City on electronicintifada.net. Asim is a father, an engineer, and a PhD researcher, and serves as the spokesperson for the Gaza municipality. And finally, as we always do, we wanted to highlight people expressing joy, determination, and resilience across Palestine and around the world. A new assessment by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the UN's Satellite Center revealed this week that 98.5% of cropland in the Gaza Strip is either destroyed in no-go zones imposed by the Israeli military or both. Palestinians have stewarded, cared for, and made fruitful the entirety of that land for millennia, of course, but in a tiny corner of the 1.5% of land that they can still access and reclaim for food production as Israel's starvation on Gaza accelerates, members of the Samir Project, a mutual aid organization in Gaza, recorded video of an abundance of cucumber and zucchini plants, along with tomatoes, growing in the sunshine across about 2.5 acres. This was the product of a collaboration between the Samir Project and the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature, an organization that aims to protect, sustain, and reestablish sovereignty over Palestine's natural resources and food. And finally, musician and music teacher Ahmed Mouin led a song with his students, using the incessant drones overhead as instruments. The song 𝐤𝐿 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐿, Mouin says, is a call to lift the weight of truth, the voice of courage, and the spirit that refuses to be silenced.
Everyone, how are you? I miss you a lot, really. Today there's a lot of drones. I'm gonna sing a song today with drone. شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالهيل هيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويلو ويلو من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالهيل هيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويلو ويلو من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالهيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويلو ويلو من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله الشهيد معطر بالهيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمين ويل 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 لا أسهر على نجوم الليل.
It was Ahmed Mouin with his students, and that's it for the news roundup. As always, go to electronicintifada.net for much more, especially to read our new features by our brave writers in Gaza. You're watching the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Nora Barrows-Friedman with my colleague Ali Abunima. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Nora. Thank you. That was haunting and beautiful, and
Yeah.
it made me think that, you know, words change their meaning. And before we had these flying death machines, to me, the word drone referred to Scottish bagpipes. The drone is the one note that remains the same and against which the player plays the other music. I'm not describing it properly,
Or in
but
Indian classical music, yeah.
yeah. So that it's just haunting and beautiful, incredible, and it's been another horrific, unbearable week. And I almost have to turn away sometimes when you're reading and showing us what happened. But I, like so many of us, we have to bear witness, and we have so much to talk about today, including especially the murder of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues.
I still can't believe it. I still can't.
I mean, the incredible thing is he knew it was likely, which is why he wrote that extraordinary letter that was published after his death. He knew it was likely, and we saw him saying, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep reporting till my last breath. And that's what his colleagues in Gaza are still doing. They were not deterred by his murder, by Hussam Shabbat's murder, by the murders of more than 230 of their colleagues. They're still doing it. And what's shocking is the lack of solidarity from so many in the international media. Yes, there is some. There have been some expressions, but by and large, we're not seeing the support. On these reporters who we rely on, who in fact the world relies on, because all the major news agencies, the Western news agencies, rely on Palestinian stringers, as they call them.
Yeah.
They're actually doing the work.
Yeah, I was watching Sharif Abdel Quddus at Drop Site earlier, and he was talking about how Anas al-Sharif won Reuters a Pulitzer Prize. He was part of the team that won Reuters their Pulitzer Prize, and one of the photographs that won that prize was taken by Anas al-Sharif. And Reuters, just, you know, in reporting on his assassination, they just gave Israel's claims for why they assassinated him with, you know, there's no disclaimer, there's no pushback, there's no analysis at all. There's nothing. They just printed what Israel said and went with it.
They're cowards.
It's
They're
just,
cowards.
it's so brutal and so heinous, and it just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you know, at least there are people who are materially trying and legally trying to hold the perpetrators of this accountable. So why don't you introduce our next guest, Ali?
Absolutely. And just a reminder, you're watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Ali Abunima, here with my colleague Nora Barrows-Friedman. And as we've just been hearing, early on August 10th, Israel attacked a group of journalists near the main gate of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, killing Al Jazeera's 28-year-old correspondent Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues Mohammed al-Triqa, Ibrahim Zahir, Mohammed Nofal, and Mu'min Alaywa. Israel killed Mohammed al-Khaldi, a journalist who worked for Sahat media platform, and Saad Jundiya, a Palestinian civilian who happened to be present in the same attack. These brazen murders have sparked global outrage and even criticism from some of Israel's staunchest partners in this genocide, such as the European Union. This criticism has not, however, come with any action to hold the killers accountable. But on Tuesday, the Hind Rajab Foundation and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights filed a complaint at the International Criminal Court over the murder of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues, as well as Israel's killing of more than 230 journalists during this genocide, by far the largest number of media workers killed in any conflict in history. The two human rights groups say, quote, "This was not just another tragedy in a long war on the press. This was a clear-cut criminal act, a war crime, and part of a broader genocidal campaign, and it demanded a direct, targeted legal response," end quote. They also state that their action at the ICC, which names specific Israeli commanders as responsible for the latest killings, is not just symbolic litigation. The Hind Rajab Foundation says that it is tracking these individuals, identifying their roles, and preparing to pursue them in any jurisdiction willing to act. Joining us now to talk about this and other ongoing efforts to bring Israelis involved in the genocide to justice is Dyab Abu Jahjah. He is a Belgian-Lebanese political activist and writer, and he is the co-founder and chair of the Hind Rajab Foundation, the organization that uses offensive litigation to hold responsible those involved in atrocities of violence against Palestinians. Dyab, welcome back to the Electronic Intifada live stream.
Thank you for having me back.
It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for all your work, Dyab, you and your colleagues. And let's start with your action this week at the International Criminal Court in cooperation with the Palestinian Center for Human Rights. You say you have identified the individuals responsible for the murder of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues. Who are they, and what are you asking the ICC to do?
Yes, of course, when we talk about individual responsibles, the first people who come to mind are the political responsibles, and this is of course true, and this is the main responsibility is a political responsibility, and it is Benjamin Netanyahu, the ministers, and the people who are designing this policy, whether the genocide in its whole or the onslaught against journalists and aid workers, medics, etc. So within this genocide, you have a cluster of little genocides or genocidal machination that are actually being deployed in a clear strategy, serving the big scheme. And this is the attack on journalists is part of that. It is part of the war on truth. It is part of the effort to try to gaslight the whole world about what's going on in Gaza, etc. So this is very important to put out there. However, from our perspective as Hind Rajab Foundation, we try always to go beyond the obvious culprits and the usual suspects and go deeper into the structure of the Israeli army that is enabling this genocide, that is executing this genocide. And it is because we know that, first of all, this is something that has to happen regardless, but also because the Israelis are willing to, keep bearing this broad responsibility and giving it a political narrative on the level of prime ministers or ministers, etc. But they are very afraid of really making this concrete into naming those who are responsible and pursuing them legally. So within that same strategy, the HRF, the Hind Rajab Foundation, has been analyzing the drone units within the Israeli Air Force for a while now, whether it is the quadcopters who have done a lot of damage, killed a lot of civilians. So we have a special file on the droners, those who operate them and how that functions. These are usually embedded within military units that are operating in Gaza, meaning infantry or armored units. And then you have the other category of drones, which is the what we call the Hermes class drones that execute more targeted killing. And in this case, in the case of the assassination of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues, this is what was used. So initially, we had to determine the drone type so that we can connect it to a squadron of drones. So we narrowed the research to 2 squadrons, and we filed case of, we are almost sure and certain, more than 80% that it's one of the squadron that is called the Black Snake Squadron. However, there is a slight possibility that it is another squadron called the Firebird Squadron, and we filed cases against both commanders of these squadrons. Of course, these squadrons operate out of the Palmachim Air Base, which has been running the big drone campaign against Gaza. So we filed against the commander of the Palmachim Air Base, and it is operationally within the Israeli army under the Southern Command. So we filed against the commander of the Southern Command and the Israeli army, and then we go up to the Air Force commander and to the chief staff. So this is the chain of command on the level of the Israeli army. There's a parallel, let's say, responsibility to the military intelligence, specifically Unit 8200, which has been doing the surveillance, because Anas al-Sharif and also many other journalists before him were tracked mostly by telephone data, by cellular phone data. And that work has been done by Unit 8200, that also confirms the targets, confirms location, and communicates directly with the drone squadrons, and is actively participating in the assassinations. And so we filed also a case against the commander of Unit 8200, the old commander and the new commander. Why the old commander? Because this case that we filed is also including the assassination of many other journalists that the people at PCHR were documenting all through the previous months. So we joined forces with PCHR, who brought their documentation on the side of the victims, and we brought our documentation and work on the side of the perpetrators, and we did this filing together. So yeah, and it's also very interesting to know that this Unit 8200 is being promoted and branded and sold outside of Israel as, let's say, a banner holder of Israeli tech. And, in many technological companies across the world, in Europe and the United States, if you put Unit 8200 on your CV, you are very, sought after to join. So you have even technological fairs that are held in European cities, where people are boasting that former members of Unit 8200 are there. So you see, these are all segments of this genocide that are being normalized as if it is, something to be proud of. And that last is the most provocative about all this, is the fact that the Israelis claim this kill, that the Israelis are acting in a most barbaric manner, literally, by claiming a kill and by boasting about it, and to use medieval language, to put a head on a spike and clamp on your chest like a bloodthirsty gorilla. So this is how the Israeli establishment is acting regarding this. So this is why also I feel that, yeah, the response to it, I don't think anything could be enough. I don't think what we're doing is enough. I don't think, there's something burning inside to do more, and therefore we say this is just a start. These people, including those who are inciting, like Avichai Adrai, these people will go after them always, in all possible jurisdictions. Of course, our work is legal work, right? So in our terrain, we will never just let go of them. The ICC is just a start. It's important to document it there. We hope that the ICC will issue arrest warrants. They should issue arrest warrants, but we will keep going after them also in national jurisdictions and monitoring where they go and their movements.
Yeah, what happens next after you file these reports, documenting all of these, evidence of allegations of war crimes? what is the process by which the ICC reviews and then decides if they are going to add this to the previous, case of Israel's culpability in genocide and war crimes, or would it be a new case? And what's the timeline in all of this?
Right. To start with the last question, there is no timeline. The ICC has no obligations toward any entity or individual that files what they call communication to the ICC. This is why they call it a communication, because they want to keep the prerogative of acting whenever they feel is necessary. Of course, now if we look at the real world, regardless of rules and regulations, you know very well what the ICC has been actually going through in terms of pressures, in terms of all kind of machination, sanctions that were imposed on several judges and former prosecutor. So there is a war at the ICC at the moment. So we are all, we don't know. We're trying to also understand how the ICC is going to move forward with this, because we are not, we don't have an understanding yet of how the current general prosecutor is going to go about these things. So this is why I say, well, the ICC is the first most logical place to go with such a filing in the initial phases. But it cannot be, and it should not be the only one. It cannot be the end of the road, because we do not have a lot of leverage to know what will happen at the ICC. Normally, if you want to know what should happen, the ICC should, without any doubt, issue arrest warrants against at least the highest ranking officials within this list, at least the chief of staff of the Israeli army and the commander of the Air Force. But we believe even beyond that. So this remains to be seen. This is why justice, or at least litigation, should try to bring these cases also to national jurisdictions. And this is what we are trying to do. We are researching the nationality of these people, whether they hold another nationality next to the Israeli one. We are working with some leads regarding that. But also, under these people, you have people who do have the nationality, who operate under them or within their squadron or under their command, and can constitute a nexus, a link in a certain jurisdiction to bring them also, and to create jurisdiction also to them. So there's a whole, a lot of stuff that has to happen still that we can, do something about that, where we do have agency. Unfortunately, with the ICC, filing is the last thing basically you can do. You could ask, you could try to, have channels to talk, but in reality, it is a black box.
So let's talk, you talked about the importance of bringing cases in national jurisdiction, so in the courts of various countries around the world. So let's talk about a recent unprecedented step that came about thanks to the efforts of the Hind Rajab Foundation. Last month, 2 Israeli soldiers visiting Belgium to attend the Tomorrowland Music Festival were arrested and interrogated by Belgian authorities in relation to suspected war crimes in Gaza, but then they were released. Please explain to us what happened. What does it mean that the 2 suspects were arrested, that they were released, and what is the status and significance of this case now?
Right. Let me first clarify that these 2 suspects did not have the Belgian nationality. These were what we call traveling soldiers. So they are, as far as we know, only Israeli. They have only the Israeli nationality, and they were on Belgian territory to, attend this festival. Why do I say that? Because had they had Belgian nationality, then they are dual nationals, and then the proceedings will be different, right? I remember last time I was at the Electronic Intifada, I spoke about the plans that we have in Belgium for Belgian dual nationals. We still did not get there. We're working on that. We don't have to rush with them, right? Because the jurisdiction is very strong when it's the nationals. So this is why also this is very important, because we're not speaking here about Belgian nationals. We're speaking here about traveling soldiers, and we basically ask Belgium to exercise its universal jurisdiction on these 2 individuals. And the breakthrough is that just like Brazil before it, Belgium acknowledged that. But more than what Brazil did with the Vakhtani case that we spoke about also last time, Belgium went on and arrested the two soldiers. And by doing that, actually, it set up a very important precedent. Also, it chose to do that. I mean, Belgium could have waited for them to leave the country, interrogated them at the airport, just some Q&A and let them go. But Belgium wanted clearly to pass a very strong message and actually went in and arrested the soldiers and put them in handcuffs and took them for interrogation in the middle of the night. So this is the first time, and I don't want to be, using superlatives, but I mean, this is the first time on the record that Israelis at all, not just Israeli soldiers, but definitely also Israeli soldiers, were arrested, were put in handcuffs for crimes committed against Palestinians. It never happened before. So in that sense, this is an important precedent. And now, after that, of course, Belgium had to navigate a lot of pressure, as you could imagine. And what Belgium did, of course, they released them, but they released them. It did not mean that the case is closed. And after, but they allowed them to go, and which is regrettable, of course. We would have loved, or it would have been logical if they had kept them awaiting the further proceedings, right? So, but we knew that, I mean, to be honest with you, I did not expect Belgium to arrest them at the first place. I expected Belgium maybe to open a probe, which would have been good, right? Like Peru opened the probe, and it's a good thing. Brazil opened the probe. Because we're trying to build this, accountability culture towards the Israelis. This is something still new. And because since they are not nationals of the country can always claim that they do not have jurisdiction. They can go to that minimal interpretation of universal jurisdiction, whilst we try to defend a maximalist or a broader interpretation of universal jurisdiction. So now, when they let them go, after a week, Belgium did not close the case, but sent the case to the International Criminal Court. And this is important. Belgium did not do that claiming it did not have jurisdiction. It still asserted its jurisdiction, but because that power is discretionary, Belgium has the right to decide whether to prosecute itself or to deflect to the ICC, which is a higher court, because Belgium is a signatory of the ICC. So on the one hand, of course, Belgium relieved itself from the diplomatic pressure that it was under, which is, politically speaking, rather hypocrite. On the other hand, the Belgian judicial apparatus, which is maybe annoyed by the political pressure, did make a point and did send a signal, and in a forcible way. So in that sense, this is absolutely a breakthrough, and this is absolutely something to build upon.
Indeed, it is. And because of that kind of work, the Hind Rajab Foundation's, work to bring accountability for Israel's crimes has made it a target of Israel and its lobby groups. For example, this is an official Israeli government website directly attacking and smearing you and the organization. When we spoke to you on the Electronic Intifada live stream in January, you told us that the authorities in Belgium, where you live, have taken threats to you seriously, and that you've had to move between locations for your own security. Can you tell us what the situation is now in terms of any interference in your work, and if you are receiving the support you need to continue this really important work?
Yeah, on the Israeli side, there's definitely an escalation in terms of the disruptive efforts that they are trying to put forward against the foundation. And they recently communicated also that they have, commissioned extra budget for that group that they created to counter our work, because there's a group from different ministries together with the with the Shabak and the Mossad also involved in it, to disrupt what they call lawfare, right, from their perspective. So in terms of threats, I cannot say that there is an escalation in that. I think that there's a status quo. I think that, personally in Belgium itself, even though you could never discard any possibility, you can never, say that it's impossible, but we feel rather on the security level, rather okay, rather safe. But I think what their strategy is now, trying to develop more an approach to disrupt our work legally and financially. And we are feeling that also in Belgium. We are feeling that they are turning every stone, trying to make our life very hard. We are feeling that they are lobbying against us in banks. They are lobbying against us in all kind of institutions that sometimes we would need to work with. So we feel that there is that kind of pressure, and they tried also to lobby the government. They sent that report that you just shown to the Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of Interior investigated it and communicated on the record in Parliament that it is a nonsense, that they could not verify any of the claims in this report. So it turned out good for us.
The Belgian Ministry of the Interior, to be clear.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm sorry, it's the Ministry of Justice. So that turned out good for us, because this report was actually debunked by the Belgian Ministry of Justice. So we feel we're okay in Belgium, but we have to pay attention internationally. I still pay attention, try not to travel a lot, try to restrict that. So yeah, it's still there. On the security level, I think it's stable. On the disruption of our work, it's gaining traction. On the other hand, we are also becoming stronger. We are becoming also more robust. We are having more people. We are having more support. We are building a lot of partnerships. So we are also, let's say, upping our game. So I think we can withstand it, hopefully.
And of course, you, as you say on your website, hindrajabfoundation.org, you are supported by the public around the world. So people can go to your website and, make donations to support the work, which is why Israel is so keen to disrupt your ability to function. But you also told us last time that you have many lawyers around the world working with you and volunteering, and that's not so easy to disrupt. So I just wanted to point out that Israel always, if you're supported by a government or a big institution, it's easier for them to go after that. It's much harder for them to go after organizations that have a broad international grassroots base, like the Hind Rajab Foundation. So in my estimation, that's why they're scared of you. And the more support you have from people around the world, the stronger you'll be. So of course, people can always find out more about your work at hindrajabfoundation.org. Dyab, before we conclude our discussion today, this genocide has now gone on for more than 21 months, almost 2 years, and Israel only seems more brazen and cruel in its atrocities now, with its escalating airstrikes, its escalating attacks and destruction in Gaza City, and its announced plan to occupy the whole of Gaza, whatever that may mean in practice. Despite the extraordinary efforts you and others are making, especially ordinary people around the world, including many of our viewers today, we don't see any governments acting on the level they should be. At the same time, there seems to be an enormous shift in public opinion, especially in the West, where, of course, Israel originated, Zionism originated, and the support for it is still strongest. Give us just your, what are the positive signs you see, and what's your message about how we can collectively keep up the momentum and pressure for action? You are as indefatigable and determined as ever. What's your advice to us to keep us as strong as you are in this struggle for an end to this genocide and for justice in Palestine?
Well, to start with, I think we are all part of one broad movement, all of us together doing, the same work and doing the same démarche on different terrains and different avenues, legally, on the media level, like you do, on the awareness level, but also on different other levels. So I think this is something that is indeed, we have to keep going, but people, can put pressure, but it's only states who can stop the genocide. When I'm talking about stopping it, all the perpetrator, or we have to wait till the perpetrator had enough, or the genocide is completed. So this is the sad side of things. Now, this does not mean that our role, all of us, is not important. I think we have to keep doing relentlessly what we are doing, because we are creating this shift in awareness and this generational shift and cultural shift and political shift and social shift that will maybe come to fruition later. Of course, the frustration is we cannot stop this slaughter now. We cannot force it. We cannot, order them to stop. We cannot break the siege. It's something that the states block us from doing that, right? I mean, like the people who tried to march to Gaza, who's blocking them from arriving? States are blocking them, and not only the Israeli state, the flotilla people who try to reach. Well, the Israelis are stopping them, but imagine states would have provided protection to them, military protection to reach and break the siege. That would have worked better than this, masquerade of dropping aid or this part of genocide that is the so-called GHF. So, but still, even though we cannot stop it, we can make them pay the price. And this price later should be paid. There should be retribution. There should be justice. And it's not only on the legal level. We are working on the legal level. But when we create also the awareness, there will be a price paid also politically. There will be a price paid also culturally. And this can bring about that slogan that we all hold dear, which is Free Palestine. I mean, Free Palestine will be born out of all these struggles and resistances on different levels across the planet, and especially led by the Palestinian resistance itself. So this will come. And I believe, you always say, Ali, the demise of Israel is happening. And I agree with you. It is dramatic that it has to come through a genocide, that it has to come this far, to have something as natural as the freedom of a people and its right to self-determination. But it will come eventually to pass through the awareness that has been created when Israel, for the whole world, dropped all its masks. I mean, for us, people who are from Palestine or Arabs or Muslims or people who've been committed for a long time in this cause, we always knew what's going on. But for so many people, these last 2 years, have grabbed them and shook them and woke them up and let them see what's happening. So now what was fringe 2 years ago, it's starting to settle within the mainstream. And that shift is a catastrophe for the Zionist project. And it will, this is eventually why the work of awareness and the legal work and all these other works, they contribute also to this shift, right? But the big pain in the heart is that this is still unfolding and that the states are complicit, because this defaulting on their responsibility to end this genocide, a responsibility which is determined and legally set within the Geneva Convention, which is an obligation of these states. The fact that they are defaulting, including Arab states near Palestine, that they are defaulting on their responsibility is complicity. And it's something that also eventually should have legal and maybe political repercussions.
Yes,
Thank you,
that day
Dyab.
is coming. Thank you so much, Dyab.
Yeah, and that really is it. It's our efforts, your efforts, the efforts of people around the world are accumulating, and the world is changing. And in the meantime, I think we've talked about this many times we've reminded ourselves of the words of the historian Ilan Pape, who back in the early months, he warned us, he said, the next year, 2 years are going to be worse than we've ever seen, but the future is going to be much brighter. And I think we have to keep that in mind. And your work, Dyab, and the work of your colleagues at the Hind Rajab Foundation and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, and all those who are working for accountability, gives us a great deal of hope and strength. And we're very grateful to you for coming and updating us, and we hope you'll come back again, and we will be following your tireless efforts. And again, for people who want to find out more about your work and how they can get involved in it, they can go to hindrajabfoundation.org. Dyab, we wish you great success and
thank you very much.
Steadfastness in your work. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Keep going.
Thank you so much, Dyab. You too.
Thanks.
Thanks. It's always
incredible clarity,
yeah,
determination,
morale boost,
and morale boost because of the seriousness of their work. And I read through the reports. In an interview like this, we can only sort of scratch the surface, but in preparing for it, I read through all their reports and statements, and you can see the meticulousness and thoroughness and seriousness of the work they're doing. And it's extraordinary. And that's why Israel sees them as such a major threat, that it's got a dedicated unit to go after them or whatever it is. But Israel can't stop all of us.
No.
And that's what it's up against the world now.
Yep. Thank you so much, Ali. Again, thank you to Dyab Abu Jahjah of the Hind Rajab Foundation. And we wanted to now go to an interview that we recorded earlier with our longtime contributor, scholar, activist, organizer, writer, Shahd Abusalama. Artist. She's an incredible artist.
Wonderful.
And she's a daughter of Jabaliya refugee camp. She grew up there. Of course, as a refugee. Her original villages are just a few kilometers away, of course, and she and her family have been through absolute hell the last 22 months. And Shahd, who is not in Gaza, has been trying to protect her family members from this nightmare, from this genocide. So we were able to speak with her. We recorded this earlier. Let's go to that incredible interview with Shahd.
Thank you so much for joining us, Shahd. A few hours ago, you posted on Twitter, X, that Israel just killed your neighbor, Usamah Abu Murad, someone you grew up with in Gaza. You've also lost many other friends and family members in this ongoing genocide, including your uncle Marwan and your aunt Haniya earlier this year. What do you want people to know about Ala and about the situation for people you're in touch with in Gaza right now, including the survivors of some of these massacres?
It's an ongoing grief. Like we still live in an open-ended funeral, as you can see, and there's no time to really process any loss, because we have to stay strong for the survivors. We of course, like, there's no words to describe the devastating loss of all these loved ones, uncles, cousins, friends, neighbors, teachers. But we have to remember that all of them were like either a son or a father or a husband, and that they leave people behind who are our responsibility. Their survival is our responsibility. And for example, when it comes to Marwan and Haniya, they also lost two sons, Yusuf at the beginning of the genocide on the 27th of October 2023. My dearest cousin, he was actually the closest of all of them to me, and I was in daily touch with him. And then they killed my uncle and his wife Haniya and their son Wasim, who just became a father to a son he named Yusuf to commemorate his brother who was martyred at 27 years old with no crime, while standing outside the house, our grandparents' house in Jabaliya refugee camp that they sought refuge to, the same family house where we were all born, actually. We were all born in that house. We're talking about the first Intifada, when 3 generational families would be like growing inside under the same roof. And we were one such family. Majid, my eldest brother, and my elder sister Majd, and me were born together with all of my cousins that are now killed. Few survive. Muhammad, 17 years old. He was 16 when he lost his parents and brothers, and he hardly survived. He survived with shrapnels, and he's still suffering the health complications of this injury. The shrapnel remains in his chest, and he hardly received any medical care in Gaza because of the endless flow of injured people, thanks to the endless crimes against our people and the devastation of the health sector. And they're so overwhelmed, so they can't provide the right medical attention to injured people. So Muhammad has been reporting shortness of breath. He's turning into like a skeleton, skin and bones, like right in front of me. And I speak to them at least twice a day. And I see them like in front of me, like shrinking, and I can't do anything. And everything we send to them is 50% deducted, and as if like you
And
know,
that's
like
because of the commissions that
commissions. Yes, but we have to do that because they rely on us for the survival. And what other options are there? So it feels like we're like structurally vulnerable, that all forces are like collaborating to destroy any potential of our people's survival.
But you haven't given up on people, though. You are campaigning for them and you're trying to help them. What are some of the things that you're doing and that other people like you with families still in Gaza are doing?
Yes. So I have launched a fundraiser to help me sustain their existence and survival, and support their evacuation and potential resettlement, hopefully, ideally in Spain, because I succeeded to evacuate 6 members of my family from the genocide and save their lives. And the fact that they killed my uncle and his husband and wiped out so many branches of my family, like shows that the danger at their life is not hypothetical. It's not like, you know, a matter of anxiety. It's real. It's real, and we live it with every waking moment. And Sarah, poor Sarah, like the youngest child of Marwan and Haniya, she turned 12. She turned 12 on the day that her parents were killed, and has been denied education, has been denied any sense of safety. She's dealing with like constant nightmares and trauma symptoms, various trauma symptoms. And when she talks to me, like, she's like, when are you, do you have any news about potentially us coming to join you? They look at me as if like I'm the only you know, hope. And it's hard to be burdening this responsibility, but I can't tell them as well that the whole world abandoned you and you have no option but to die. So I'm trying my best, and I'm trying to knock every door possible for them, because they are my siblings, and I don't subscribe to Western conception of a family, a nuclear family. As I said, I was born under the same rooftop with my cousins in my grandparents' home in Jabaliya refugee camp. And this home Israel turned it to become our family's mass grave. And we're still witnessing an incredible loss, and they're facing situations of day and death every day. Even yesterday they were just coming back from checking on my older 2 uncles who are disabled and are in dire conditions, and they were checking on them, just coming back. Israel bombed nearby in Sheikh Ridwan, a massacre, a bloodbath. And the dangers, they don't know how, like, they survived. Everything was hailing on them, the dust and everything, and they were just running for their lives. And this is like almost every day there's a bombing nearby, and there are kids growing under these conditions. Wasim, who was martyred together with my uncle and aunt, his parents, he left a newborn, Yusuf, who just turned 1 year old on the 7th of he would turn 1 year old on the 7th of October. So he's just 10 months now. And he's growing under these conditions. He's growing in a tent. And what can a tent do to protect a child from 1,000-ton explosives?
Shahid, another dear brother, cousin, family member of yours, Mahmoud Abusalama, is a journalist in Gaza. He's still in North Gaza, one of the few left doing the work of bearing witness and telling the world, showing the world what's happening, especially in Jabaliya and Gaza City. And your concerns about Mahmoud are obviously justified, especially after the latest murders by Israel of Anessa Sharif, Mohammed Kareka, and the other journalists, the Al Jazeera crew a few days ago.
Ibrahim Tahir, Mohammed Nofal, Mohammed �2𝐿
𝐿. Talk about Mahmoud's situation and go ahead.
Mahmoud Abusalama has been alongside his colleagues, have been doing God's work on the front line and reporting from conditions of life and death, where they're wearing a vest, a press vest that is supposed to protect them, and instead it's making them legitimate target in the eyes of Israel's terrorists. And he has survived multiple close encounters with death, 1,000 times almost, lucky. Incredible. I've been following him closely. I've never missed a notification from him, and I'm always every day on calls with him throughout these times. He's one of my closest cousins since childhood, and I'm really worried about his life. This is even before the last targeting of 6 journalists in the Ashifa tent just a couple of days ago. For like last week almost now, Israeli media, an infamous platform called Israel Speaks Arabic, has been sharing a video of Mahmoud that he filmed of him evacuating a family, helping to evacuate a family to safety. This family had just been targeted by an Israeli strike while on their journey of displacement, this journey of death that Israel forces people to do after imposing displacement orders on them, forcing them to either leave or die. But even as they leave, they cannot escape the death. So he was recording the aftermath of one such crime, and used his own vehicle to help a group of children who were in complete panic after losing and witnessing God knows what terror they've seen. And they were in horrific conditions, in absolute panic. And in the Israeli propaganda platforms, they dismissed his whole coverage as Pallywood, which of course we're not new to these tactics of delegitimization that they use against the Palestinians. And they've used this claim against so many crimes to deny so many crimes that they've perpetuated against the Palestinians in the past as well. As a media scholar, I can say that they even used the footage of Muhammad al-Durra, who was killed while under the arms of his father in the second Intifada. Sorry, they also dismissed that as Pallywood in their platforms, and Israeli journalists also engaged in the same dehumanizing rhetorics, denying a crime that was perpetrated before camera. And no accountability happened then. No accountability happened for any crime. And And here Mahmoud has survived multiple injuries as a result of targeted attacks against him and his colleagues. Even with Anas al-Sharif and Hussam Shabat and others, there are horrific videos that record close encounters they had with death because of Israel's constant, deliberate targeting of journalists in a desperate attempt to silence the truth.
Yeah, they were hunted. They were hunted.
And journalists are being hunted, and so your fear for Mahmoud, given the incitement against him, we know that many of the other journalists were killed. Some were just killed in their homes or their families were murdered. But with other cases, including Anas, Hussam Shabat, and many, many others, they were preceded by these kinds of incitement campaigns.
That's right.
Where a target is
Mahmoud
placed
is
on them.
facing the same tactics. Mahmoud is facing right now the same tactics. And they are also accusing him of being a member of Hamas. Complete lies.
As they did with Anas al-Sharif. And
exactly.
And
many
Hussam
of the
Shabat.
others.
And yeah.
So,
and he's seeking every avenue to try and save his life and his family's life. Mahmoud is a beloved husband and a father to 3 beautiful children, Majd, Muhammad, and Sanad, and they all deserve to live. They deserve a future. And I don't know, what is more urgent than this, especially in light of, Israel crossing all red lines. And we're just waiting for them to target the next victim. And Mahmoud is one of the latest prominent journalists who remain alive in North Gaza, particularly. And his account is very important to survive for humanity. So I hope that we succeed in saving his life before it's too late. The impacts of the genocide is multifaceted and beyond description, and we need tens of thousands of podcasts like this to give it justice. But there is one last case that I'm also heavily invested in, that I'd like to talk to you about, hoping that maybe someone somewhere has the power to help give some relief to these survivors. So one relative of mine, his name is Muhammad Ala Qarmout. He is a wanted child with no surviving family. He's one of 8 family members who were completely killed, wiped out from the civil registry on the 23rd of November or 13 of November 2023, so early in the genocide. And Muhammad was evacuated alone to Qatar in January 2024 with help from the Qatari Red Crescent. And I'm glad this happened, because if not, maybe we couldn't have guaranteed Muhammad's life. However, Muhammad is alone in Qatar, in Mujamma Tumama, in a Tumama complex. He was evacuated as a 15-year-old, and now he's 17, And ever since, he's been calling to be reunited with his grandmother, �ꞌTidal, who is my aunt, and the sister of my other aunt, Haniya, who was killed, the wife of Marwan. And she lost her husband and her 3 children as they were on a journey to visit her and check on their mother, who was seeking shelter somewhere. And they bombed them on the way and killed them all. And they killed her husband in his attempt to go check on their home in Beit Lahia. And they killed the mother of Muhammad, who's now in Qatar, with all her children and her husband. And no one is left but him for her. And she's suffering from the Crohn's disease.
And she's still in Gaza.
She's still entrapped in Gaza,
Yeah.
with no one caring for her. Like her, of course, like she's with her brothers and sisters, but everyone has families and grandchildren, and in dire situations. They lost their homes. They're all in horrific conditions. And if we could just get �ꞌTidal, because she also has serious medical needs, to join her her grandchild, her only surviving grandchild, in Qatar. And I've been trying to do this task that looks so simple, but is made so impossible for like months. I've been calling and emailing and doing everything possible, entrusted by Muhammad and my aunt �ꞌTidal to reunite them, and nothing is happening. Nothing is happening.
I mean, is there a way for people to be evacuated? I mean, we know that there are limited numbers of evacuations. It's not very clear how they all take place.
There are evacuations that are happening. Italy succeeded to evacuate families and residents and orphans and injured people, and Norway and Belgium. So why not Spain? Why not the UK? Even the UK, I think, happened, although very limited cases. But there needs to be more pressure on Israel. There can't just be one option for the people of Gaza to just die or starve. Like they can't do that to our people, and they can't leave our people abandoned with no options. They have to provide channels to support these survivors. These
survivors of a genocide that all these governments have tolerated, supported, sometimes aided, armed very directly.
But children who have no access to any basic rights, no medical or psychological care. They've lost their parents, they've lost their siblings, they've lost their homes, and they have no access to education for 2 years. They're terrified. They have so many struggles, day-to-day struggles, to secure food, to secure water, to secure medicine. It's incredible. It's incredible, the unprecedented dehumanization that shouldn't be tolerated by anyone, and yet it continues. It continues.
Shahd, just before we wrap up, it's clear to me that you're not getting used to this suffering. It's not being normalized for you. The pain is very raw and very real. You said in the beginning it's an open-ended funeral, and we can hear that in your voice. We can see it in your face. We feel it. We feel it every day. You are in a situation where it's even more unbearable because you have close families and friends still in Gaza. You've lost so many people, and you don't want to lose those who remain. You want them to be rescued, to survive, to live. You want to see them again, to hug them again. And I know many of our friends and colleagues from Gaza who are in the same situation. And you have to...
A simple right, and yet it feels impossible.
Yeah.
It feels that they are completely abandoned, and the world has accepted that as if the Palestinians are born to die. We are shouldering a burden that is too hard to carry alone, and too hard to fathom, like how to describe. And those survivors, like enough torture them. They need recognition of the crimes that have been committed against them. They need a chance to heal. They need to return to their ordinary lives. They need to see a future, and it is our responsibility to ensure that. And we can't just watch them suffer and sit back and do nothing.
We're witnessing a Holocaust, and we were always told never again. And we read history books about how people during the Holocaust of the 1940s set up underground networks to rescue Jews, to bring people to safety, to reunite families. And this was something we thought was in the history books, and now we're living it, you're living it. And it's
we're also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ali.
No, go ahead.
So we're also living like hierarchies, where I'm witnessing those hierarchies of how like different refugees are treated depending on where they come from and who has expelled them from their home countries. So even in Spain, like I see it with my own eyes, the treatment of Ukrainians vis-a-vis the treatment of Palestinian refugees. The level of apathy towards our lives is unbearable and outrageous, and shouldn't be accepted, and it should be called out. And people just like take it as if like it's a job, like as it feels like all these human rights organizations are just sustaining these structures and treating us as cases, as like they do their jobs from 9 to 5, while we're suffering nonstop. We're suffering nonstop, and even in their 9 to 5 job, 9 to 5 weekday job, it's just incredible. They fall short. I'm so exhausted, and it feels like we're just repeating ourselves, and I'm refusing to allow like anyone to tell me that no, there's no hope for your family but to die or starve, and this is the reality and we just have to normalize it and accept it. We cannot normalize it.
No.
Cannot. How can we normalize it? And I'm so acutely aware that I am myself a survivor, and I was born by accident. Like if my father wasn't released in the 1985 prisoners exchange that was imposed against Israel because of Palestinian resistance, my whole family didn't have a chance to exist. My dad wouldn't have met my mom, and none of us wouldn't have been born. And then the day I was born, in a curfew on Jabaliya refugee camp in the middle of Intifada, with a soldier interrupting my mom's journey of labor and pointing a gun at her belly, and all of what we suffered ever since the second Intifada, the campaign, the so-called summer rains, then cast lid, then pillars of clouds, then all of these uninterrupted bombardments of Gaza, that so many crimes of which happen in front of us, around us. Like, we escaped so many crimes by accident, and these people need a chance to be, before it's too late.
Shahd, I just, we, after almost 2 years of this, it's hard to find words anymore, but you with your words have expressed the ongoing horror, the unbearable pain that is unrelenting. And I just want you to know that we hear your voice every single day. I see your posts on Twitter X, and they're powerful. I see that you haven't given up hope for your family and for your people. They haven't given up hope in you. The people in Gaza tell us every time we speak to them that they see their hope in us when we speak out, when we keep talking about Gaza. And you have reminded us powerfully of our collective responsibility to do that, especially those of us living in the United States and Europe and the countries that are directly responsible for this genocide. I don't know what I can tell you that can ease this pain, Shahd, except that we will continue doing this work. We're grateful to you. I hope that that people listening and watching will take to heart, be visible, speak out, scream and shout about Gaza. Don't give up on anyone there. Nobody in Gaza has given up. No one has given up on themselves, on their loved ones, on their family. We can't give up on them. We can't normalize this. Shahd, please know that among our viewers and listeners, there is so much love for you and so much support. And we love you too. And we're grateful to you for coming here and sharing these difficult and painful details.
And I have to say that you have been like an integral mechanism of survival for me since I was in Gaza. And you're continuing to be like our voice when we're tired. And I'm just really grateful that you exist, that your examples are there for the people. No one should feel that they can't do anything. Everyone has a role to play. And we are embodying this example as we live and as we exist and resist. And Israel has to pay the price for all these crimes and injustices they committed against our people for 4 or 5 generations.
Yeah.
So hopefully Palestine will be free in our lifetime. We just have to keep pushing and never give up in the face of this evil.
it's painful. The pain is real. We acknowledge it, but we're not defeated in any way. We're not giving into it. Thank you, dear Shahd. I hope next time we speak to you, we'll have better news. We'll have an end to this. And we're so grateful to you. And take as good care of yourself as you can, because we need you and we need your voice as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Stay strong, Habibti. Talk soon.
Free Palestine.
I mean, I was moved when we recorded that video, but watching it, yeah, she's just the searing pain of watching your loved ones who you grew up with suffering without any respite, over and over and over again in so many different ways. Just the psychological torture and the physical torture that Israel is doing to Palestinians, and to be so far away and to know intimately those neighborhoods that are now erased. I don't know. We're so grateful and I'm so deeply sorry. I'm just deeply sorry for everything that Shahid and her beautiful family are going through.
Yeah, and we're grateful to Shahid for being willing to speak about it, because it's so painful. It's painful to listen to, but it was painful for her to speak. And I think after we recorded that, we all needed just time. And listening to it, as you said, I found it harder to listen to it than when we recorded it, because when you're doing an interview, you're trying to listen, but you're also focused on what's coming next. And now I was just listening and bearing witness to it, and I'm just so acutely aware that there is, Shahd is, because there are so many Palestinians from Gaza who are outside Gaza who are going through what Shahd is going through every minute, every day. They're worried about their parents, their loved ones. They've lost so many people. They couldn't be with them. They couldn't hold them. They couldn't console them. They couldn't go to their funerals. There are people in Gaza who lost loved ones who are outside Gaza. I'm thinking of our friend, the journalist Ahmed Dreimli, who is in Gaza, who's surviving, who he still posts, and his mother was in Egypt. She was ill, and she passed away in Egypt in hospital, and he couldn't be with her. His siblings in Gaza, they couldn't be with her. They couldn't hold her hand in her final days and hours. They couldn't say goodbye to her. And it's just an enormous crime, this Holocaust. Enormous. I don't think in decades we're going to be able to grasp what has been done and what is being done. And I, like all of us, I go between, I think, a sadness, the phrase that Shahd used, an open-ended funeral, stuck with me. But I feel rage and anger.
Yeah, I think those are the only two emotions that that we're all feeling, is bottomless rage, bottomless sadness, and we have to figure out what to do with that as well. Well, let's bring on Jon. Hi, Jon.
Hi. That was devastating.
Yeah.
And I just think that it represents a single family and just think about.
Yeah, I mean, those neighborhoods in Jabaliya, you know, just seeing footage every day of the Israeli army just bombing things to smithereens, demolishing the foundations of those neighborhoods and the people in them. It's something we should never get used to. And throughout all of this, Shahd mentioned the resistance. The resistance forced Israel to release her father in the 80s as in one of many prisoner exchanges. And that's why Shahd exists today. And the resistance is forcing Israel to suffer extraordinary losses on the battlefield, not just in Gaza, but the resistance of Yemen as well. Tell us about what we're going to be hearing today in the resistance.
Yeah, well, we've talked about it over the last few shows, the failure of Operation Gideon's Chariots, and what comes next, I guess, is the next step, the ethnic cleansing of Gaza City. So yeah, I think we're in an in-between period here where a lot of the retired Israeli military and security establishment believes that Israel's losing this war and their troops can't continue to carry out these crimes because they're exhausted. And you know, none of the critiques are about the devastation and the human toll, of course, but Gaza's undefeated, and I think that that's something that will shape history.
Absolutely. All right, we'll take it away, John.
All right. You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada. I am Jon Elmer. This is the Resistance Report for day 678 of Israel's criminal genocide. I am reporting this on the 14th of August. We'll bring up the first map as always, just so people can get their footing and understand the areas that we are going to talk about. I've told you on previous shows that Operation Gideon's Chariots had been essentially ended more than a month ago. I reported to you that there was no, that satellite imagery showed no advance of troops during the second part of Gideon's Chariots, which focused down in the south there in Khan Yunis. 80%, upwards of 80% of all structures in Gaza have been destroyed. Gideon's Chariots operation was expressly an operation targeting buildings and not the resistance, but the resistance mounted more than 200 operations, qualitative operations against the Israeli military in Khan Yunis alone. That is the second battle of Khan Yunis. And of course, as I've told you, June and then July was even more costly for the Israelis. Those are the two deadliest months in the past year of this battle. The Israeli military has now drawn down its force in Gaza by more than 2/3 have withdrawn after the end of Gideon's Chariots. There are now 5 brigades of the IDF in Gaza, which amounts to a single division, although they are spread out across 3 divisions. They just began a new operation in Zaytun in southeastern Gaza City that you can see up there on the top of the map. One of the areas that right around Gaza that you see, that's Gaza City. And Zaytun is just to the southeast of Gaza City. It's a neighborhood in Gaza City. That operation began yesterday, and already we're getting field reports of multiple Yasin strikes versus tanks and D9 armored bulldozers in Zaytun. There are still Israeli troops on the two corridors that I've broke down over the past few months. The Morag corridor that divides Rafah and Khan Yunis down in the south of the map. Now there we're looking at just north of Egypt, and also the Magan Os corridor, which is cutting Khan Yunis from east to west, and the Morag corridor cuts Rafah from Khan Yunis, Rafah in the south, Khan Yunis in the north. The major troop withdrawals this week have been from the eastern edge of Gaza City, where destructive operations were carried out over the past weeks in Tufa and Jahjah in particular. And this week, at the end of last week, just after we went off air last week, the Israeli Security Cabinet met in a 10-hour meeting to discuss next steps. During that meeting, that meeting was preceded by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, doing a media blitz in the United States, because that is the most important audience for the Israelis, because that is the country that is protecting Israel, supplying it with its weapons, and giving it its free hand to carry out this genocide, as we all know. But that media blitz by Netanyahu was saying that they were going to occupy Gaza, that they were going to attack Gaza City, western Gaza City, the Shati refugee camp, areas that they have not been, the Israeli military has not been in since late 2023, when, of course, they said they had operational control over that area. I mean, Israel started saying they had operational control over areas in the north of Gaza within 2 weeks of the ground war. These have been absurd statements that are always rebuked by the resistance at every turn, because each of these battles now in Zaytun, this is the 7th battle of Zaytun that is going on beginning today. But the 10-hour Security Cabinet meeting, the IDF Chief of Staff presented at that meeting. He and his forces are against the occupation of Gaza City. They're not interested in the fighting. They're exhausted. Their troops are exhausted. They have had 20,000 troops taken off the battlefield. That's more than 2 full divisions taken off the battlefield through injuries. And the Security Cabinet meeting ended up being an argument between the IDF chief and the political and Netanyahu's extreme right-wing government. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir was pushed back apparently hard against the operation. And it's, again, like I said before, it's the exhaustion of the troops and their gear. It has nothing to do with the massacres of civilians or these aid trap massacres. But earlier this month, 19 ex-IDF chiefs of military intelligence, Amman, Shabak, the internal security, and Mossad external security chiefs, 19 of those chiefs made a video directed at Trump, where they spoke English in the video, and a couple salient points from that video of those ex-chiefs, a number of them ex-IDF chief of staffs. They said, "We are on the precipice of defeat. We are now mostly offsetting losses to the resistance," is the implication. And of course, offsetting the losses is what they're doing with the demolitions. So the plan to invade Gaza City is going to be slow walked while they give troops a break. And in this interim period, some talk about the operation launching on October 7th. This is the kind of psychological approach the Israelis are taking to this kind of battle, drawing it to October 7th. And so we may have here a number of weeks of aid massacres from the air, but limited military maneuvers on the ground. During that 10-hour Security Cabinet meeting, Netanyahu told the IDF chief that his methods had failed to achieve the goals. Everybody is very consistent in Israel, in the security establishment, in the political establishment, and across Israel, that the operation has been a failure, a genocide, but a military failure. Senior IDF officials sharply criticized the Security Cabinet meeting to Channel 13, saying that the military is sinking into the sands of Gaza, something that the Qassam brigades and the resistance has promised since the first day of this operation. But there was an article in 𝐓𝐿 𝐈𝐧𝐭𝐿 this week that caught my attention, that had the main source of it was Michael Milstein, who is the former head of Israeli military intelligence and the Palestine file. And that article in 𝐓𝐿 𝐈𝐧𝐭𝐿 said, nearly 2 years after Israel launched a war aimed at dismantling Hamas following the October 7th attacks, the movement remains the dominant force in Gaza. Despite the devastation of infrastructure, the assassination of top leaders, and a crippling blockade, Hamas continues to govern, fight, and even pay salaries. The endurance, that 𝐓𝐿 𝐈𝐧𝐭𝐿 said, is not a coincidence. It's the result of an organization that has embedded itself deeply within the fabric of Gaza's society, adapted militarily, and evolved its financial tactics to survive one of the most intense conflicts in the region's modern history, and one of the most brutal live stream genocides that any of us have witnessed in our lifetimes, for sure. That's my point. That was not in the 𝐓𝐿 𝐈𝐭𝐿 article, but that is just to give you a sense of where we are right now. Major drawdown by the Israeli military in Gaza, which will not affect the number of massacres, because those are done through airstrikes and artillery that Nora reported on so well at the beginning of this show. That won't change, nor will the massacre at aid sites change, which are, as Nora pointed out, more than 35 a day. But in terms of resistance and face-to-face combat between the Israeli military and the Palestinian resistance, I think we're going to see a period here of a slight lull in comparison to the 200 operations in Khan Yunis alone in less than 2 months, and dozens, if not hundreds, of operations in North Gaza during that period as well. Let's take a look at map number 2, because I showed you this map last week. These are the genocide maps. These maps can be sent right to The Hague, and for anyone making files on this genocide, this map was updated this week. This is the United Nations Food and Agriculture Association map, and you can see damaged. It's showing you damaged and damaged crop sites, areas to grow agriculture that have been intentionally destroyed by the Israelis during this battle. This map is a little bit clearer than the one I showed last week. They published follow-up details to that this week, so I'm going to dig into that a little bit to show you just another way that Israel has been destroying the sustainability in Gaza that has been built over the last 2 decades of an intense military siege and blockade on Gaza, and Gaza making itself self-sufficient in many of these agricultural areas. And that's what you're seeing on this map. I'm going to show you the 2 next slides, show you the exact breakdown. It's really remarkable. Total damage to cropland as of the end of July in hectares. Northern Gaza, 93.7% of North Gaza has been destroyed. North Gaza was a major hub of agricultural activity, particularly Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia, but all across the eastern areas of northern Gaza were heavily relied on agricultural areas. The Gaza governorate itself, 91% destroyed. Deir al-Balah in the middle camps area, also an agricultural area, more than 85% of it has been destroyed. Khan Yunis in the south, again, wide spread out governorate, Khan Yunis is, and its major agricultural areas, 81.3% wiped out. Rafah, it's also in the south, agricultural areas have been destroyed by 80%, and it's only not more in Rafah right now because it's under Israeli control, and surely before they withdraw from there, they'll destroy the agricultural land, which is something they have done in every war of the past 2 decades, destroyed the crops as they were leaving. We've watched this all throughout the war, the way Israel has destroyed greenhouses as a goal of their operations. And this next slide will show you that zero, you can see that whole areas, North Gaza has zero accessible crop space that has not been damaged. Zero accessible crop space in north of Gaza, in the north, with Beit Hanun being an agricultural village town. They have zero. Zero in Rafah is accessible, and zero is also accessible that has not been destroyed. The key messages from the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization: 8.6%, 8.6%, less than 9% of cropland in the Gaza Strip is still accessible, but only 1.5% of that is accessible and not damaged. Another 12% of cropland is not damaged, but is currently not accessible. So you're talking about a maximum amount of 12% throughout the Gaza Strip. 86% of the total cropland damaged as of the end of July. So this is a tally that gets worse every day. Nora reported on an excellent program that shows you what could be done with this land and what people in Gaza do with this agricultural land to allow themselves to be self-sufficient. And that's part of the heartbreak of seeing these aid massacres, is that the Palestinian people are self-sufficient people that have been, through the genocide, forced to go and risk their lives to pick up aid, which was previously distributed by the United Nations in dignified ways that allowed all people who needed aid to get it, and not just a race against the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Let's look at the next slide here, because there's a couple slides that I saw this week that I thought I would bring to people's attentions, because we've talked about these aid massacres on every single show. Every single day in the news, you're getting 35 plus people killed, hundreds wounded, because they're just spraying ammunition. But we haven't really shown the mechanism for how that works. And if you're looking at this map here, if you look down on the left side of the map in Rafah there, all the gray area is the evacuation zone. So all of Rafah is under evacuation orders. You can see on the coast, up at the coastline, there's a distribution site number 1. Then you can see beside it distribution site number 2, and distribution site number 3 is on the Morag corridor in Rafah, on the border with Khan Yunis. But you can see that the sites, all 3 of those sites, are in the shoot to kill zones. They're in the no-go evacuation zones that are free fire zones for the Israelis. Those red dots there are showing you where the checkpoint is that they Israelis ask people to come to gather at. It's the mustering point. And you can see that all 3 of those mustering points are also in the shoot to kill zone. So Palestinians are being asked to walk for kilometers through the shoot to kill zone. And Israelis can spray them with ammunition, and as we've seen from the whistleblowers, artillery shells, mortar rounds being fired to use as crowd control, to use as direction for the thousands of people that are coming to try to get the aid. And the aid only goes to the strongest people, because you have to traverse that multi-kilometer area. You have to survive the mass shootings. And then you have to get all the way back through the closed zone to get back to your family in the Mawasi camp, which is what you see along the border with the Mediterranean Sea. The white area in this map, at the top of the map, is the Mediterranean Sea. So that's Mawasi on the sand dunes there. That's the middle camps area where you see under evacuation order. It's the evacuation orders between Dar al-Bala and the south, and between the middle camps and the north in Gaza. But you can see the other site up in the north there is also, it's below the Netzarim corridor. It's across from a closed military zone. It cannot be accessed from Gaza City. It has to be accessed from the middle camp. So there's none of these sites truly in the north. And I just wanted to show you how that mechanism works and why we have 1,900 people killed since this GHF death trap system was set up. 13,600 wounded in these aid distribution sites. These are just appalling crimes on every level. And the fact that the world is participating in this and doing these airdrops to back this program up is a deep shame. And justice needs to be served on those. Let's look at the next slide, because you can see the actual satellite imagery of the distance that people have to walk. You can see the red area. The red area marks the shoot to kill zones, and the above that red area, you can see those dots are tents. Those are thousands, tens of thousands of makeshift tents that people are living in along the coast in Mawasi, on sand dunes with no infrastructure. And then they're told to walk from their displacement camps down these multi-kilometers. You can see on the map, it's showing it's 2.6 kilometers from the muster point, which is already in the shoot to kill zone, 2.6 kilometers to the aid site. And on the other one, it's 2.7 kilometers to the aid site. And you can also see with this satellite imagery, this is from The Economist, you can see why people are being shot where they're in their tents, because the Israelis are spraying ammunition along this area, and it's right bordering against people in their tents. And the tents obviously have no way of stopping incoming rounds or shrapnel. And people are coming into the hospitals in Khan Yunis every single day, at the same time every single day, with the same injuries every single day, from being hit while in their tents, minding their own business, through these Israeli massacres of the aid sites. So I just wanted to put those maps in people's mind when we're talking about what it looks like to collect those aids. Let's take a look at the resistance here. We have audio track in the first of this. So I wanted to leave that audio track in there just so you could see what is going on when these fighters in the artillery unit here and the rocket unit are setting up their rocket launches. This is Surah al-Quds. This is an operation from this week, and this is the kind of operations we're going to see for the next few weeks. I'm predicting, because the Israelis just aren't in areas to fight. They have withdrawn into defensive positions in all of their spots. And so that's when, I mean, these artillery and rocket units are constantly working, but these are the kind of operations that we're going to see in the coming days. This was a launch at the Gaza envelope by Surah al-Quds Islamic Jihad, launching Quds 3 Qassam rockets that you could see there. The artilleryman in this operation, he says, "Oh, cowardly Zionists, we are in the rocket units, have shelled you before the operation you called Gideon's Chariots, and we shelled you during the operation you called Gideon's Chariots, in the heart of the infiltration axes, and now we are shelling you after the end of Operation Gideon's Chariots." And so these fighters telling you they're still on the battlefield before, during, and after this military operation. It doesn't change the way that these rocket and artillery units operate. You're going to get a chance to see the rocket launch controller in this one, and you're going to see Surah al-Quds has their two famous rocket commanders and overall commanders, Baha Abu al-Atta and his brother Muhammad, who were killed in the 2019 and 2021 wars. This is where the fighter is saying that you're cowards. He's saying this to the camera right now, that we've targeted you. But if you watch the controller here, you can see there are two faces of the brothers on the controller, and that is those two were assassinated. And like all weapons that the Palestinians use. There's a link to a martyr on them, and there is on these rocket operations as well. Just a note on these operations. These videos this was this week. The video was published this week, and the Israelis responded in their military communique that 2 rockets were fired at southern Israel in the Gaza envelope. Unsuccessful interception attempts were made, so they failed. Iron Dome failed to hit these, to knock down these rockets. These successfully landed in the Gaza envelope, continuing to target the Gaza envelope 678 days into the war. And then Israel bragged that an Israeli fighter jet bombed they call it Hamas, they call everybody Hamas, bombed a Hamas rocket launching position in the Jahjah neighborhood that was firing rockets. The next day, they fired 2 missiles at the launch tripod a day after everyone was gone from the scene of this operation. So just gives you an idea that Israel is still unable to knock these down, and the significance there of the 2 brothers that you can see on the launch controller, the link to the struggle that has been happening and we have seen all through this battle. So that is, and then the next one, we have another rocket operation here. This is showing you rockets getting set up to be launched. This is an attack on Nahal Oz. Nahal Oz was the key Israeli military base that was overrun on October the 7th, overrun in minutes, that collapsed the Gaza division on October 7th. And you can see the launch of those 2 rockets as well. The Israelis didn't talk about failed interceptions on this one. They pretended these didn't exist. They did not say they knocked them down, but this was also this week as well. And you can see there, maybe go to the next slide. You can see it even better on the next slide. There you see it. On their rocket, it says 2025 made in Palestine. So here we have Islamic Jihad 𝐐𝐓 𝐄𝐿 artillery and rocket unit showing us in that brief moment that they always do. They didn't linger on it. I just did a freeze frame here to show you that they want you to see that this rocket was built in 2025. These are an ongoing construction. The military manufacturing is ongoing. And I think we will probably see that if the invasion of Gaza City happens as well. We will see that. We have seen it all throughout the war, I think, that they've been able to manufacture during the war. Also, just a note about the Third Battle of Tufah. A field commander in 𝐐𝐓 𝐄𝐿 said that after the partial withdrawal of the enemy from the areas east of Gaza City in recent days, and after reaching pre-prepared combat zones rigged with 𝐓𝐻𝐞 and other anti-armor landmines. 𝐓𝐻𝐞s are the EFP of the 𝐐𝐓 𝐄𝐿s. It's like their Shawad, as well as reverse-engineered return to sender explosives from enemy remnants. They were able to, this commander says, able to target 52 IDF vehicles with Yasin strikes and IEDs and return to sender operations over the 2.5 months of the operation in eastern Gaza City. That is Jahjah, Tufah, and Zaytun. The next slide shows you, I made a little compilation of these because I don't show you these week in and week out because there's so many videos to show, and the artillery guys here, the mortar units, you don't see much. And so I usually leave them out. But just to say, and I've said it before, they always get short shrift. But there's 10 of these videos a week from all factions. These are Qassam that you're watching here, but all factions, PFLP's Abu Ali Mustafa Brigade, the DFLP's National Resistance Brigades, the Popular Resistance Committees, Nasser Salahuddin Brigades, the Al-Amudi Brigade of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, and of course the heavy lifting is done by the Qassam Brigades and Saraya al-Quds. These are 60, 80, and 120 millimeter mortar shells, mortar bombs that are fired, that are built in Gaza as well. that you're watching here. And all factions released these videos. There was a PFLP operation with Soraya al-Quds. There was a Popular Resistance Committee's our mortar video with the Al-Amoudi brigades. So we see these constantly, and you just saw there that was a Soraya and Qassam joint operation. And just this past week alone in Khan Yunis, there was 12 artillery operations. That's operations, not amount of ammo fired, because you can see here they're going to fire half a dozen per mortar launch. In eastern Gaza City, there was 14 artillery operations. Also this week, the Qassam brigades 2 days ago, they hit 2 Merkava tanks and 2 bulldozers with Yasin 105 shells in the Khan Yunis area. An Al Ghul sniper operation in Tufa in Gaza City seriously wounded a soldier from the 401st Armored Brigade, which the IDF confirmed that wounding. And I said today there was 2 Yasin strikes in Zaytun, a Yasin strike versus a tank and a Yasin strike versus a D9. So these artillerymen and rocket units are hard at work. They just don't always get on the show because there's so many other operations. I'm just going to take a quick look at Yemen, just give you the map here, and you can see that's a country 2,000 kilometers away from Palestine, can impact it greatly. And you can see many countries in between Yemen and Gaza that are not doing what Yemen is doing in support of the Palestinians. The Yemeni armed forces fired a ballistic missile, the Palestine 2 ballistic missile with more than a 2,000 kilometer range. They targeted Ben Gurion Airport overnight. If we take a look at the next slide, you can see the way that they have been showing us their work, their information operations. Abdul Malik al-Houthi here saying there was 14 operations carried out last week. This is last week, including missiles and drones. This takes the tally since the beginning of the war to 1,700 plus missiles, drones, and unmanned boats, unmanned drone boats that they use, surface vessel, robot surface vessel boats that they have used. You can see the 2 there. That's the Jaffa drone on the bottom right, and it's overlaid on top of the Palestine 2 ballistic missile with the very notable Kafia nose cone on that missile. And we've seen that missile strike within feet of the airport lounge at Ben Gurion Airport. Abdul Malik al-Houthi said that the support operations from the Yemeni forces this week were carried out. He's talked about last week with 14 missiles and drones, including targeting Ben Gurion Airport, as well as Jaffa, Haifa, Ascalon, and of course, the Red Sea blockade continues. The naval blockade continues, is successful, effective, and impactful, he said. And the port of Rashrash, which the enemy calls Eilat, remains closed. And that is still the case today. There was 10 Yemeni operations in the last week. If we look at the next slide, you can see how they do their information operations. Jahjah Sari, the spokesperson, comes out and he gives an address every single time they carry out an operation. Jahjah Sari comes out and gives an address, but they also put out these info cards that tell you what happened. So in this one, they're talking about Tuesday's operation. It says the Air Force of the Yemeni Armed Forces carried out 4 military operations using 6 drones targeting vital Zionist enemy sites in the areas of Haifa, the Negev, Eilat, Beersheba, and Ben Gurion Airport. The continued execution by the Zionist enemy of its plans to liquidate the Palestinian cause through genocide, starvation, and displacement will have dangerous repercussions for all Arab and Islamic countries and peoples. The liquidation of the Palestinian cause will be a prelude to the enemy's violation of other peoples and countries unless these countries move to support the steadfast resistance in Gaza, which is the first line of defense for the entire Islamic nation. That's what Jahjah Sari said. And if we look at the next slide, you can see this is an edited video that I put together of these weekly demonstrations in Sabain Square and Sana'a. These million person marches that happen every single week. Abdel Malik al-Houthi gives a speech every single Thursday. And at the end of his speech, he calls on people to go to these demonstrations. And on his Thursday speech last week, Abdel Malik al-Houthi said, if there had been widespread popular movements across Arab and Muslim countries, it would have influenced the decisions and positions of the rulers of those regimes. From the American perspective, the land that belongs to Israel isn't just Palestine. It is the entire region. The Israeli and American powers are genocidal in their ideology, behavior, and practice. They are a danger to all human societies, Abdel Malik al-Houthi said. So that is the resistance report for day 678 of Israel's criminal genocide in Gaza.
Thank you for that. As always, John. Yeah, the 98.5% of accessible and available land, agricultural land in Gaza, just decimated or in no-go zones or both, like the UN agencies said.
And the key thing about the buffer zone that Israel intends to keep is the buffer zone is the agricultural area as well. And even when there wasn't a buffer zone inside Gaza, they still shot at farmers in those areas. The defeat needs to be total to reclaim that agricultural land, which is, something that to me, traveling there was so impressive to me under a total blockade where it sometimes would take me a year to even get in. And you see just how self-sufficient people had become, even in just such a short amount of time after the brutal blockade was enforced, because Palestinians elected a government that the United States and the European governments didn't approve of. So they decided to strangle Gaza. And those agricultural lands were part of the revival of them, and the deepening of them was part of the resistance strategy for the people of Gaza.
Yeah, I remember, John, the only time I was able to visit Gaza in May of 2013, and we visited farmers in Khuza'a, east of Khan Yunis, in a very open area, but we could see the watchtowers and the Israeli fences, and we were told, don't make any sudden movements. There were international volunteers there at that time wearing, high visibility vests, so that I remember meeting activists from Spain there on that particular day I was there. But what stays with me to this day was the joy of those farmers, and they were families. So, you had generations of people harvesting the wheat. And I still have, I don't keep it where I am now, but I still have a handful of that wheat that I keep in a jar. I think I've shown it before. But yes, that's just to say it was incredibly productive land, but it was the land that was closest to the Israeli army and the most vulnerable. And I remember then, we've also reported on this on the Electronic Intifada, that, the farmers told us that the Israelis will come in overnight and just destroy a crop just for the heck of it, and that would be months of labor destroyed, and food, and so
that's what the settlers are doing.
That's what they're doing across the West Bank now.
In this war as well. That's to destroy the greenhouses. I remember when the strawberries came in, and it was like, you could hear kids running down the road, like from the first strawberry pick. The strawberries are in, and a donkey and a cart behind it, just full of the most beautiful strawberries you've ever seen. And it was just, sheer joy. Everybody came down out of their houses. It was, it's beautiful.
But also, when I was listening to you, John, I was also thinking of what Nora showed us in the news report of that kusa, that beautiful zucchini growing, and part of me was thinking, gosh, I hope the Israelis don't come in and just spray it or destroy it out of spite and out of the. But, you know, that shows the resilience that growing food is part of survival and resilience and resistance. So,
and they rebuild the cucumbers, they rebuild the hospitals, they rebuild. There's a lot to be hopeful about when you see the way that Palestinians have handled this just absolutely unbelievable situation. The dignity and the community.
That's it. More in everyone's little fingernail than the entire Israeli military. That's for sure. Before we have a couple of things we want to talk about, but real quickly, since this is kind of circulating in the media these days, Netanyahu saying that he not only does he have plans for a so-called Greater Israel these days, which includes like parts of Saudi Arabia and most of the Sinai Peninsula, in Lebanon and Syria, of course, which is ridiculous, but the full occupation of the Gaza Strip. And many of you know Justin Podor of the Anti-Empire Project, and in his latest sit-rep a few days ago, he was talking about how the announcement of a full occupation of Gaza, of northern Gaza, mostly Gaza City, is, what could be different from what's happening now, of course, on the ground. But it's a way to also prime the Israeli public for giving up on their captives.
Absolutely.
So
that was the key to that security cabinet meeting when the IDF was pushing back on it. The IDF chief said, if we're doing this, we're taking off the prisoners off the list of objectives for this war. Because I think that even just the timeline, they want a couple of months to there's going to be a massive reserve call up because they don't have enough troops. They're going to need somewhere between 5 and 10 times the number of troops that were in Gideon's chariots, at least, to carry out this part of the operation. And then it's a months long operation from there. So there's, I don't think that the captives were ever part of Netanyahu or the government's goal, but now they're definitely not.
Yeah, Ali, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just to say that not to underestimate the evil of Israel, but just because they announced something doesn't mean anything. I mean, they didn't, Netanyahu is saying, I want to occupy Gaza and have full control of it. Israel does not have full control of Gaza now.
No.
That's what Jon shows us week after week. And the reason it does not have full control is not because out of the kindness of Israel's heart, it declined to take full control, and now it's decided it's going to. The reason Israel hasn't taken full control of Gaza almost 2 years into this genocide is because it can't. And so the question you have to ask is, what has changed because of Netanyahu's announcement? Do they have suddenly new superpowers? They found a lot of soldiers they didn't have before.
No.
They're killing people as fast as they can. So I do think I listened to Justin Podor's sit rep where he made that argument. I think it was convincing. This is about genocide first. It's to tell the so-called home front that our goal is genocide, not to bring the prisoners of war back. And the families understand it that way. That's how they are interpreting it.
Yeah, but the ethnic cleansing of Gaza City alone is a catastrophe. And if the assassinations of those incredible journalists that we have all followed every day was the opening salvo, it's it's a deepening of the genocide. I think we're now at genocide 4.0, if that's what's going to happen. There's 1 million people in Western Gaza City. And if the two places that need to be, that are on the Israeli hit list are Gaza City and the middle camps, it's going to be a genocidal catastrophe. I don't put much in the occupation of Gaza part. I don't think that's the thing to focus on, but I do think that they're building for an invasion of Gaza City and the Shati refugee camp, and there's going to be fierce battles in Western Gaza City. And if they are able to push 1 million people, we remember what it was like when the first exodus from Gaza City in October of 2023 was, and November, it was a devastating catastrophe. And that was at the beginning of the war. To do it now in the condition that people are in. And this is where international intervention is it's right there on the table, because there's a delay in the amount of time before they're going to enact this stage of the genocide. And instead of just giving platitudes or discussing ways that in the future you might play a role in this conflict, they step in today and say, no, this is one genocide too far in this battle.
And they did, in the sense that we got this slew of coordinated statements from Western allies and supporters of Israel and its genocide, the EU, the UK government, France, and all the usual suspects. I think even Germany, which announced that it was going to suspend new arms sales to Israel, which means all those that are in the pipeline are fine, but any new ones might not get licensed, but not accompanied by any action. And we had another joint statement from European Union foreign ministers hand-wringing, but no threats of action. So they're saying they're against it, just like they said that the invasion of Rafah was a red line. Right. And what did they do? So only action is going to change the course of things. But not everything goes Israel's way, and that's what we have to keep hoping. And also, Israel has a lot of internal political conflict. It's becoming a non-functional state internally, and so it's what Israel says isn't what necessarily happens. We have to just keep that in mind.
We will follow it closely.
Yeah, obviously. Thank you. So we have a few kind of discussion points that you wanted to talk about, Ali. There's a new Haaretz, the Tel Aviv newspaper, had this headline: UN blacklists Hamas for sexual violence on October 7th and against hostages, warns Israel may be next. Break this down for us. Why? What's going on here?
Yeah. So you see that headline there. What the Haaretz article tells us is that Hamas has been placed on a blacklist of groups suspected of committing patterned rape or other forms of sexual violence in armed conflicts, according to an advanced draft of a UN report obtained by Haaretz. And this is a report issued by the UN Secretary General. It's actually done by his appointed advisor on sexual violence in armed conflict, Pramila Patten, who we've talked about before. And it's really, this is just utterly bogus. According to Haaretz, the report is scheduled to be presented by Guterres to the UN Security Council today, Thursday, and it also warns that Israel could be placed on the blacklist in the next report set for release in 2026. So Hamas already added, according to the released draft or the leaked draft, Israel finger wagged at them and said, you could be added next year. Now let's get into what Haaretz says. it claims that in the report, Guterres calls, it claims that the document marks the first time Hamas has been included on the UN's formal annex that lists parties credibly suspected of committing or being responsible for patterns of rape or other forms of sexual violence in situations of armed conflict. Now, as regular viewers know, there is to date being August 14th, 2025, not a single identified victim, living or dead, of a rape on October 7, 2023, during the Hamas-led operation. Not one. And yet the UN is alleging, based on no new evidence, a pattern of rape, patterns of rape or other forms of sexual violence. Now, his claims are based on that report by Pramila Patten that came out in early 2024 and that we've discussed countless times. And according to Haaretz, Guterres will note that Patten concluded there are reasonable grounds to believe sexual violence occurred at multiple locations on October 7th, including cases of rape and gang rape. Now, we went through that report in detail, most recently on our July 10th live stream, and I also went into some of the details of that Pramila Patten report, which this Haaretz article will not tell you. That's the video if people want to find it on a YouTube channel. Israel revives 7 October mass rapes hoax with same old lies, a report that Asa Winstanley and I did. But as we point out, that Pramila Patten report that Guterres is citing as the reason to add Hamas to this UN blacklist, the report could not verify a single specific rape. It debunked several false claims of rape. It says that the UN team reviewed thousands of photos and videos and could see no tangible evidence of rape in any of them, that it was provided no forensic evidence of rape, that it wasn't allowed to meet with any alleged victims of rape, and so on. Again, all this is covered in our 2 years of coverage, including that recent report from July 10th. So despite that, Guterres is adding Hamas to its blacklist and not Israel. And it's really notable because according to the draft report, and this is that Guterres is going to supposedly present today, it states that Israel did not grant access to relevant UN bodies to carry out fully fledged and independent investigations regarding the attacks on October 7th. I wonder why. So the UN went, they said, we'd like to investigate, please show us all the evidence, let us go and speak to people. Israel refused. And yet on the basis of these allegations by Pramila Patten, he's adding Hamas to the blacklist. Now, by contrast, this report, which we haven't read yet, we're just going by what's in Haaretz, also addresses sexual violence carried out against Palestinians by Israeli forces. And what does the UN, what does Guterres' report to the Security Council say about that? According to Haaretz, it says that the UN has verified 12 cases of sexual violence against 7 Palestinian men, which were committed by personnel from the Israel Defense Forces, the Israel Prison Service, the Shin Bet Security Service, and the National Counterterrorism Unit, Yamam. According to the report, again, this is according to Haaretz, the cases which took place in the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 and Ofer prisons and the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 detention center include 1 rape, 1 attempted rape, 3 incidents of squeezing or pulling the detainees' genitals, and 7 incidents of kicking or beatings to the genitals. The draft report states that the Independent Investigative Commission into the sexual crimes allegedly committed by Israeli security forces documented at least 2 attempted rapes and 4 cases of genital assault against male detainees in �𝐞 and Megiddo prisons, as well as at the Sde Teman detention facility. The Commission of Inquiry also received credible information of detainees suffering from burns to the anus, according to the draft report. I should have given people a warning. I'm sorry I didn't, about the graphic nature of this. 2 incidents of genital beating and kicking during a house raid in the West Bank were also registered in the report. The report further states that women and children in Gaza were forced to strip down and were photographed by Israeli forces in 10 separate cases. Now, that's just what's in this UN draft report. We've seen much more documentation of sexual violence by the Israeli government and its forces, systematic, against Palestinians. That's been documented by many organizations. But just going by this report, they say that the UN has verified actual rapes of Palestinians by Israeli security forces. By contrast, the UN has not verified a single rape of an Israeli on October 7th. And yet Hamas is added to this UN blacklist and not Israel. Israel gets the finger wag.
And if they were added to the list, it wouldn't be until 2026?
Yeah, because they have another year in which to commit crimes, and then the UN is going to go and see, well, are we going to add them this year or not? So make that make sense. That the only rapes that the UN has documented, the only actual rapes and attempted rapes that it says it has verified, the UN's word, were Palestinian victims raped by Israelis. And yet it's only Hamas that's added to the UN blacklist and not Israel. So what that tells you, that this report is purely political, and the result of pressure and lobbying by Israel, by its allies. I don't doubt, I believe, I don't have proof of this, that probably the UK government and Germany were involved in this. And the reason I think that is because in our July 10th program, we talked about this new bogus Israeli report by something called the Dina Project to revive these fake allegations of rapes on October 7th. We went through that in detail and how there's nothing new there. That was funded by the UK government. Also, the German government is funding another fraudulent Israeli organization, the so-called Civil Commission, which was accused in the Israeli press of just collecting money and doing nothing. The German government is now funding it to produce more what are undoubtedly going to be rape hoax reports. Because remember, the German government has lied repeatedly that leaders saw videos of Hamas rapes in progress, videos that not even Israel claims exist. So that's how committed Germany and the UK are to these lies. Now, I just want to briefly go into a sort of a parallel process to this, because the UN, the Secretary General appoints all these special advisors. So Pramila Patten is the one on sexual violence and armed conflict. There's another one on violence against children in armed conflict. And they also produce a blacklist of the worst states and organizations that harm children during armed conflict. They call it the list of shame. And I want to remind people what we reported in June of 2023. You'll see the Electronic Intifada headline here. UN chief encourages Israel to kill more Palestinian children. And the story here was that Guterres, under pressure and lobbying from the United States and Israel, refused to add Israel to the UN's blacklist of states and organizations that commit crimes against children during armed conflict, even though for the year that report covered, the 2023 report covered 2022, Israel was by far the biggest violator of children's rights in armed conflict. And yet, Guterres added all sorts of tiny organizations from around the world, but not the biggest perpetrator of violence, Israel. And in that report I wrote in June 2023, I note that at the press conference where that special advisor, Virginia Gamba, presented this report, even the journalists there, the mainstream journalists, were shocked and couldn't understand why Israel wasn't listed. And that was in June of 2023. The genocide started months later. Israel has now killed tens of thousands of children in Gaza. You wonder if Antonio Guterres ever loses sleep. I don't think so. And then Israel was added in 2024, along with Hamas and Islamic Jihad, because you have to have balance. You can't say a bad thing about Israel without saying bad or worse things about Palestinians. That's how balance works in the so-called international community. Even though in the 2024 report, the vast majority of violations were the reports covering the years 2023 and 2024, something like 98% of the violations in Palestine, Israel, were by Israel, but yet they're adding them. And finally, I just want to point out that in the latest report, which came out in June of 2025, so just 2 months ago, and that covers 2024. The United Nations, this is reading from the report, verified 8,554 grave violations against 2,959 children. Who are those committed by? According to the UN, verified grave violations were attributed to Israeli armed and security forces, 7,188, unidentified perpetrators, 43, Israeli settlers, 42, individual Palestinian perpetrators, 11, Palestinian Authority security forces, 7, Hezbollah, 3, and the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, 1. I don't know how they did that. Maybe relates to something on the border with Lebanon. But what didn't you hear in that list? You didn't hear Hamas. You didn't hear Islamic Jihad. You didn't hear any Palestinian resistance group. Even the Palestinian Authority was in there, but not the resistance. That's the same UN that added Hamas and Islamic Jihad to the list of, the worst violators of children's rights. They do claim some other violations in other years, but the proportion remains the same. Thousands by Israel, a tiny handful by everyone else. But it took years. It was only in 2024 that Guterres added Israel to that list of shame regarding children, after exempting them year after year after year, because they would have lost all credibility if they had continued to pretend that this entity that mass murders children, that has been mass incarcerating children for decade after decade after decade in military prisons, torturing them, shooting them dead in the streets of towns and cities across the occupied West Bank, massacring them year after year in Gaza, with its wars going back to 2006 and even earlier, but especially after 2006, that Israel was kept off that blacklist until 2024. That's the blacklist related to children, but that's to give you the context in which to evaluate the UN's decision to add Hamas to its blacklist related to sexual violence, when there's no evidence of a single rape on October 7th, and not to add Israel, despite the UN verifying at least some rapes, according to its report, against Palestinians. Absolutely disgusting and corrupt.
to say the least. There's going to be a lot of questions that Guterres is going to have to answer in the future, hopefully soon. Thanks for that, Ali. Finally, we have
We decided
some
to end with
good news.
Yeah.
Let's end on some good news and give people some hope about real, action that they can take and that has borne fruit.
Frankly, we don't do this enough. There are many good news stories we could highlight, but this was a big one that I just didn't want to miss. And it's here's the headline from the Iowa City Press Citizen, very mainstream publication. Iowa City okays resolution to boycott companies complicit in Gaza's humanitarian crisis. And what that story says is Iowa City's council members approved a resolution to boycott companies such as Boeing and Caterpillar for allegedly being complicit in the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where images of starving children are being aired on national newscasts. Several council members struggled to hide their emotions as they unanimously approved the resolution during their Tuesday, August 5th council meeting, proclaiming a desire to oppose mass slaughter, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. And did you hear that? It passed unanimously in Iowa City, in Iowa, one of the most Republican states in the country. And the resolution identifies, and this is amazing, they say, again, this is from the newspaper, the boycott states that the city of Iowa City should withhold the investment of money in entities complicit in the current and ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, as identified by the American Friends Service Committee, a Quaker-founded organization advocating for peace and justice, peace and social justice. So a shout out to AFSC and our friends in the Quaker movement, because that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And then there's an announcement from the group that had a huge part in making this happen, Iowa City Action for Palestine, and they call this a people's victory. And they say the boycott resolution was passed unanimously by the Iowa City Council. Iowa City now joins a handful of American cities that have passed boycott measures against the Zionist entity. Comrades, the passing of this resolution was achieved through collective effort, and it is a testament to the power that we have together as Iowa citizens of conscience. And they say thank you to everyone who made this possible. Every email, flyer, story share, and attendee helped push this forward. This is an important moment to join the struggle to end the Zionist entity's genocide in Gaza and the fight for a liberated Palestine. So kudos to everyone in Iowa who made that happen, and to everyone around the country working. We talked a couple of months ago about the Apartheid-Free Communities campaign that AFSC is spearheading, the American Friends Service Committee, and there are similar efforts all over the country, all over the world. Courage and strength to all of you working for this. This victory is a sign that these efforts are worthwhile.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention too, here in the San Francisco Bay Area, back in December 2024, which seems like a century ago, the Board of Supervisors, I think, at the Alameda City Council, Alameda County, passed an ethical investment resolution. And this was after months and months and months of sustained hard work by activists here in the Bay Area. And the county had, just after the resolution was passed, the county began its divestment process, starting with $32 million in divestments from Caterpillar, which, I mean, this was a huge story, but it was overshadowed by, of course, everything that's happening in Gaza. But it just goes to show that, this can happen. This can happen in the Bay Area. It can happen in Iowa City. It happened, I think, in Portland, I believe, Oregon, something like that. If it hasn't happened in your community, make it happen. It's easy to plug in and get the info and connect with people, and pull the cities or counties' investments out of companies that are profiting off of the slaughter of Palestinians. Yeah, so thank you for that, Ali. That is some really good news we need. Let's take a look at the website. We have some incredible features. There's Tamara Nassar's news report about Jordanians outraged by gourmet food festival while Gaza starves. A really important article just pointing out the depravity of the Jordanian monarchy and government to put together a food festival while just miles away.
Yeah, this is a great story by Tamara, which really just reports on and documents the outrage that Jordanian citizens were expressing at hosting this gourmet festival, bringing Michelin-starred chefs in from around the world. The German government participated, the German embassy, which is helping Israel starve and murder people in Gaza, had a stand where you could taste or view presentations of gourmet German bread. So, while people in Gaza don't have bread or moldy bread is being dropped on them, the German government was talking about, these wonderful rye breads at this festival in Amman, and it just was so out of tune with people. So I thought this was a really interesting story.
Yeah, thanks, Tamara. And of course, features, there's Asim's feature that I read during the news report, as well as 2 others that were published just in the last couple of days. Please go to electronicintifada.net, read our new features and our news reports, sign up for our email list. Ali, who are the people that we want to thank this week?
So many people. I want to thank each and every person who watches, who listens, who shares our stories, who reads our articles, who goes out and shows their love and support for Palestine in all the ways that you do, including by supporting our work at the Electronic Intifada. It's really amazing. We can't do it without you. And there's so many of you. And I wish I could name you all, hug you all, but I'm going to just name a few just to say how much we appreciate every person. So Jan, Dawn, David, Fashole, John, Warren, Lydia, Mark, Helma. I'm doing a little bit of a longer list this week because I was away last week. Ali, Omar, Salem, and Dave, Conrad, and Robert. That's just a few of you. We are so grateful to each and every one of you.
So much. And I want to say a special thanks to Tamara Nassar, of course, our director and producer, Ali Gerzon for social media production, Maureen Murphy, of course, our senior editor, Michael F. Brown, our fact checker, as always, everyone at the Electronic Intifada, Asa Winstanley, who's off this week. We'll see you next week, Asa. Enjoy your break. We miss you. And on behalf of
Asa's
all of us,
somewhere speaking.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's out doing the work in real life, as they say. Well, it's all real life, but meeting people face to face, which is wonderful. So we wish him success with that. And I just want to say that, to everyone around the world who's active, but just particularly people in the UK who are going out and defying this disgusting ban on, arresting grannies and for going out with signs opposing genocide and saying, I support Palestine action. And it seems that people's numbers are growing. So thank you. Take care of yourselves, but thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Yeah, indeed. And on behalf of all of us at the Electronic Intifada, myself, Ali, John, Tamara, Thank you all, and we'll see you next week.